He thought it was just a party. But one whisper changed everything. Two women with secrets in their eyes. One assistant caught in the middle. When curiosity becomes desire and desire turns into something dangerous. Can Linda resist? Or will she surrender to the whispers that pull her deeper? Please don't forget to subscribe and comment. My name is Linda, and this story is about the night that changed the way I looked at the people I thought I knew best. It started at a company party I almost didn't attend. My boss, Mr. Harold Whitman, was hosting it at his house, a sprawling white brick home on the edge of town with tall windows that glowed golden from the inside. Everyone at work had been buzzing about it for weeks, talking about how extravagant it was going to be, but I had hesitated. I wasn't the kind of woman who felt comfortable at parties where I didn't know if I belonged. But in the end I went, and that decision led me into something I'll never forget. Mr. Whitman's wife, Margaret, was the first person I noticed when I walked into the crowded living room. She was beautiful in the kind of way that made people instinctively lower their voices when she walked by. Her dark hair swept elegantly over her shoulders, her green eyes sharp and intelligent, and the way she moved in her pale blue dress made her the center of attention without even trying. Everyone seemed to adore her, and I couldn't blame them. She had a grace I envied, a poise I could never imagine possessing. Margaret had a friend by her side that evening, a woman I had seen only once before but remembered instantly. Her name was Diana. Where Margaret was elegance, Diana was fire, red hair that seemed to spark under the chandelier light, laughter that carried across the room, and a boldness in her smile that could unsettle anyone it landed on. Together the two of them were magnetic, a pairing that drew every eye in the room. I tried to keep to myself, lingering near the buffet table and sipping wine, watching coworkers mingle. That's when Margaret noticed me. "Linda," she said warmly, her voice smooth as silk. "I'm glad you came. I was hoping we'd get a chance to talk tonight." I felt my cheeks flush under her gaze. "Thank you, Mrs. Whitman. It's a lovely party." "Margaret," she corrected gently. "Please call me Margaret." Before I could respond, Diana stepped closer, her eyes narrowing slightly as she studied me. "So this is the Linda you've mentioned." I blinked. Mentioned? My boss's wife had mentioned me to her friend? I didn't know what to make of that. Margaret smiled, a secret kind of smile, and leaned toward Diana. She whispered something softly, her lips brushing close to Diana's ear. I couldn't hear a single word, but I saw the way Diana's mouth curved into a slow, knowing grin. Then Diana's eyes flicked to me, steady and deliberate, and that grin deepened. My heart skipped. They had whispered about me. There was no mistaking it. I froze in place, caught between their shared secret and my own confusion. My cheeks burned as the weight of their attention pressed against me. Margaret's expression softened as she turned back to me, as if she hadn't just set my heart racing with one quiet whisper. "Don't look so startled, Linda. We were only saying nice things." Diana chuckled, a low, teasing sound. "For now." The way she said it left me rooted to the floor, unsure if I wanted to stay or run. That moment stayed with me long after the party ended. I went home that night, lay in bed staring at the ceiling, and replayed it again and again. The whisper. The smirk. The way Margaret had said my name. I told myself I was imagining things, that it didn't mean anything, but deep down I knew better. It meant something. Days passed, but the memory didn't fade. At the office, I found myself distracted, my mind wandering every time I thought about Margaret or Diana. Then one afternoon the phone on my desk rang. I answered, expecting it to be a client, but instead it was her voice. "Linda? It's Margaret. Could you step into the lounge for a moment?" My stomach fluttered nervously. "Of course," I said. The lounge was quiet when I entered, bathed in warm afternoon light. Margaret was there, seated gracefully with a cup of tea, and beside her sat Diana, her red hair catching the sunlight like fire. They both looked at me as if I were exactly who they had been waiting for. "You came," Margaret said softly. Diana tilted her head, smirking. I wasn't sure she would. "Why wouldn't I?" I asked, though my voice betrayed the nervous tremor running through me. Diana leaned back in her chair, crossing her legs. "Because sometimes curiosity is stronger than fear. Sometimes it isn't. We weren't sure which you were." I frowned slightly, heat rising to my cheeks. Curious about what? Margaret reached across the table, her fingers brushing lightly against mine. The touch was soft, almost accidental, but her eyes told me it wasn't. You intrigue us, Linda. You have from the moment I saw you. You don't push yourself forward like everyone else, but you're impossible not to notice. And that makes you interesting. My throat went dry. I didn't know what to say. Diana's smile was sharper. And once we notice someone, it's hard to forget them. The air felt heavier, warmer as I sat there caught between them. I could barely breathe under the weight of their attention. Before I could respond, Margaret leaned closer, her perfume surrounding me, her eyes steady. Don't be afraid. Sometimes the best things start with a whisper. Then Harold's voice called from the hall, breaking the spell. Margaret rose gracefully, Diana following close behind, but before they left, Diana gave me one last glance, her eyes locking onto mine in a way that made me shiver. From that moment on, my world shifted. Margaret began appearing more often, sometimes stopping by my desk with little compliments that felt too personal, sometimes lingering in conversation just a little longer than necessary. Diana started showing up too, and when she did, her gaze was always direct, teasing as though she was daring me to admit what I was feeling. Weeks passed in a haze of glances, subtle touches, and quiet words that carried double meanings. I tried to convince myself I was imagining it all, but I couldn't. The pull between us was undeniable, growing stronger every day. One Friday evening, long after everyone had gone home, I was still at my desk finishing a report when I heard the elevator doors open. Margaret stepped out, dressed elegantly in a dark dress, her heels clicking softly against the marble floor. "You're still here?" she asked, her voice warm but edged with something else. "Yes," I said, my throat dry. "Just finishing some things." She walked closer, her presence filling the space until it felt like the room was holding its breath. "Harold's gone already. It's just you and me." My chest tightened. I should. Before I could finish, footsteps echoed down the hall. Diana appeared, her fiery hair glowing under the lights, her lips curved into a knowing smile. "I thought I'd find you both here," she said smoothly. I looked between them, my breath caught in my throat. Margaret's eyes held mine, calm but intense. "We've whispered about you, Linda, because we saw something in you. Something worth exploring." Diana stepped closer, her gaze unwavering. "Still frozen," she teased, echoing that first night at the party. I couldn't speak. I could only stand there, my heart racing as the two women closed in around me, not in a threatening way, but in a way that made me feel as though I was no longer just an assistant at the office. I was something more, something they had chosen. Margaret reached out, her hand brushing against mine with deliberate warmth. "Don't be afraid," she whispered. "The most extraordinary things in life often begin with the smallest of secrets." And in that moment I knew I was standing at the edge of something that would change me forever. What began with a whisper had pulled me into a story I couldn't have written myself. A story of temptation, curiosity, and the discovery of desires I hadn't dared to acknowledge. I didn't know where it would lead, but I knew this. Nothing in my life would ever be the same again.